Welcome to Gear Talk episode number 11. Today I want to talk about two different things. First of all, of course, I'm going to talk about the little intro you just heard and about the song and how I created the sound that you heard. And then I want to talk about gear in general, about when to buy gear, why to buy gear, and what to buy, about the gear acquiring syndrome. Maybe you've heard of that. And so let's get started with the intro. The intro song are the chord changes of a tune called Yellow Moon. Yellow Moon is a song of the Neville Brothers. I was inspired to solo over these chord changes after listening to Matt Schofield. Matt Schofield, in case you don't know him, he's an awesome blues player, a British guy who lives in the States now, I think. And he's an incredible blues player. So I love his music and I listened to his CDs and and then I decided to give it a try and solo a bit over the changes of Yellow Moon. I used, like you saw, my Gibson Les Paul custom shop with P90s inside. These are Lenny Fralin Humphrey P90s. I think it's really helpful to have Humphrey pickups, especially when you play live and you have lots of lightning on stage, and this can cause hum problems on stage. So for me, the Lenny Fralins work great. And then I plugged this Les Paul into the Jan Ray Vamuram, for me, my favorite crunchy overdrive pedal. I love it. And then I went straight into the Marshall. And again, like most of the times, after the Marshall, I used the Universal Audio amp top box, the aux. And I added a slapback delay on the sound. This is the slapback delay, you hear it. And this is something that Matt Schofield does almost all the times. Yeah, sometimes he uses a longer delay as well, of course, but on his basic sound, there's always a short slapback. And this gives like a nice feel when you play it. It almost disappears when you play it over a play-along. But it feels great and it adds like some nice kind of room to the sound. Let me show you the sound that I have without the backing track. So this is the basic sound I have. I messed a little bit with the volume potty. So the pedal cleans up nicely. So there's not much more to say about the sound. I mean, I've talked about the guitar and the amp and the pedals already. So now let's talk about gear in general. Before I tell you what gear you should have or how you should probably look for the right stuff, I want to tell you a little story. When I was at the guitar school in Munich decades ago, and when I was working a lot on my guitar playing, I had a classmate at this guitar school called Oliver Utst, and he was and he still is an impressive musician, a great guitar player, and he taught me some great lessons. The lesson number one was I was always worrying about having the right equipment, to do things properly, to have like the right guitar to record a jazz song, and to have the right sound to work in the studio and whatever. So I was constantly looking for the right gear, and all this preparations, all this looking for gear kept me from like working on my ideas a bit, So when we had to do a little demo version of what we wanted to record in a studio at the guitar school, I thought you gotta have the right stuff to do a proper demo at home. But he didn't worry too much about about the stuff he had at home. He just followed the vision he had. So, for example, he had to record heavily overdriven rhythm guitar sound, and he didn't have the right stuff at home to do this. So he just took what he had and tried to work with the stuff he had. So what he took to record the rhythm track was a little amp like this. And he said, well, how can I make this sound the way I want it to? And he came up with the idea of cranking this little battery toy amp. He cranked it, he put a pillow on the top of it, he put a microphone on the pillow, he put another pillow on the microphone, and he recorded the overdriven sound. And it turned out to be something I've never heard before, and it was like an amazing result, very different from everything else I've ever heard. But the lesson that he taught me by doing so was that sometimes it's just better to concentrate on your creativity and on your playing, and don't worry so much about having the perfect sound, the perfect tone, the perfect gear. It's the most important thing is your idea of what you want to do, your hands and your skills, and not the gear. And I think you can waste lots of times in looking on new gear. Learn to use what you have first of all, and then ask yourself, do I really need something new? I think this is like the most important lesson that I learned from my good old friend Olli Utst. So finally, I want to talk a bit about gear you got to have. Well, I'm a professional musician, so in certain situations I definitely need a few things to do my job, but I'm trying to reduce this to an absolute minimum. So when I go to a studio job, I usually carry 2 or 3 guitars, at least 2, most of the time 3. Basically, I need one guitar with a Fender style sound, so I usually take my Stratocaster, and I need the Gibson style sound. So I usually take either my Les Paul Goldtop with the P90s or the Les Paul Standard. And many sound engineers ask for Telecaster because of the twang, I think, because it cuts through the mix nicely. So I usually take a Tele, a Fender Stratocaster, and a Les Paul. So these are the 3 guitars that I need. I don't need more. It's nice to have a semi-acoustic. It's nice to have like a variety of Stratocasters, and it's nice to have like maybe a modern Super Strat or whatever. But for most of the professional situations, these 3 guitars are enough. And I usually carry just 1 amp with me when I go to a studio job. For most of the stuff I do, my Marshall Super Lead works great. I usually carry this one together with a 212 cabinet. In the cabinet there are 2 Vintage 30 speakers. They work well for all different kinds of music genres. So this always worked great for me. And if I had to choose 2 pedals, I'd probably choose the full tone OCD overdrive or distortion pedal and the exotic RC boost, because you can adjust like a nice crunchy sound as well with the OCD, and you can boost it to a fatter, more overdriven tone, even for a lead tone in combination with the RC boost. So from crunch to overdriven or high gain lead, you can achieve everything with the combination of the OCD and the RC boost. So this is my go-to when I have to reduce my pedal board to just 2 pedals. Of course, it's great to have a delay pedal as well, but for a studio job, for example, it's not really necessary because the delay is usually added in the mix. So this is the gear I have got to have, and all the rest is just luxury. So is there really no reason to buy new gear, new guitars, new amps? For me, over the years, of course, I've collected some more pedals and some more guitars. And for example, if I buy a new guitar, I can even, maybe I might not need it for my job, but I can justify to buy a new guitar because I feel that in new instruments there are always many songs or many new ideas, you know. So when I got this guitar, I immediately came up with new ideas. So we as musicians, we have to stay inspired, you know, and inspiration can come from a new piece of gear, from a new amplifier that makes you play different, from a new guitar that makes you play differently. So don't worry, you're still allowed to buy new stuff. But I think it's very important in our world right now with so many problems going on that we don't get trapped in this consuming madness. You know, we have to buy and spend our money, and you know, and I really love the idea to just keep it simple, learn how to use your stuff, and you know, don't don't join in all this madness, you know, of consuming and consuming. So this is what this video is basically about, you know. Yeah, but I still have fun in looking for new gear. Thanks for watching. I hope this was inspirational or helpful for some of you, or just fun to watch. Consider subscribing. I try to be back in a week with the next Gear Talk. Thanks, bye-bye.